Also, good day, and welcome to the concluding part of this program. So, during the course of this safety, healthcare and laboratory safety program, we have looked at Module 1, which is Introduction to Safety. We look at safety regulation. We looked at facility and housekeeping safety. We've also looked at laboratory safety and classification. We've also looked at good clinical practice and good laboratory practice as regards safety. We've also looked at protective clothing and safety equipment. That's what we're going to be looking at today. In the previous section, we looked at waste management, fire safety. So tonight I will be doing protective clothing and safety equipment and first aid and exposure and safety management program. So I'll be doing module 6, module 9, and module 10. So first is protective clothing and safety equipment. So when we talk about protective clothing and safety equipment, with the general note, we must understand that there must be a regular program for safety, fire extinguisher for testing, inspection, repair, and maintenance of the safety equipment. These should keep the items in working order and ready for the day-to-day use as it might be needed. It's also important for you to record all and inspect all the safety equipment, initial them by the inspector. All employees must be well trained in the use of safety equipment so that the lack of familiarity does not add to the problem when an emergency arises. It's also important for us to know that the physical area surrounding the safety equipment must be free of clusters so as to have access, in other words, so that when you need to have access to it, it may not be hindered. So it's also important that all safety equipment must be well marked and conveniently located. So they must have a place for each of the safety equipment. So remember, we're talking about protective clothing and safety equipment. So one of the key protective equipment for safety is PPE. A PPE is generally known by everyone, and there are different PPE for different safety, different use, different industries, the lab, the hospitals, as it could be. But the PPE is used to protect the body. PPE means personal protective equipment. It's used to protect the body from accidents, contact with liquid, solid, or gases that may be used during laboratory procedures. Now, PPE must be available and used in the laboratory when required. So it is not just to have the PPE that matters. What also matters is the availability, and it must be used. So sometimes it's available within the workspace and it's not being used. For example, your lab coat, you may have a lab coat in your lab, and at the end of the day, you are not using it. If you don't use it, it's as good as if you don't have a PPE. Each employee must complete and sign the personal protective equipment. So there must be an SOP or a log that shows and describes PPE for your lab or for your organization. So heads of department are responsible person to monitor the condition of the PPE. So you must monitor the conditions of those PPE to know whether they are fit, to know whether they are still in good space to be used. Please note that damage on one PPE is replaced free of charge through an exchange system. In other words, staff are not to pay for the PPE they use to do a particular process. Do not take laboratory coat home to be washed, as they are constantly in contact with contaminated areas and therefore cannot be treated in the same way as you treat your other laundry clothes. Don't take your lab coat home and wash with your normal laundry clothes. It should be treated specially. It should be washed maybe within the facility, or someone can take it and wash it, but don't take it home and wash it along with your clothes. Please note that for gloves, it's advisable for all employees to wear disposable latex gloves when working with hazardous material. in the performance of their duty. Gloves are issued free of charge to all employees. Now, gloves must fit properly and therefore need to be available in the correct size. So if you're wearing gloves, you don't wear oversized, don't wear size that's so tight. It must be your size. Now, there are basically like three sizes of gloves. We have the medium, small, and that. So pick the one that fits you so that you can be able to work effectively. Nitrile and VIN gloves can be made available to personnel who have allergic reaction to latex. There are some persons who have to latex gloves, so you can use nitrile gloves or VIN gloves. Now, wearing of gloves is compulsory when handling or processing samples. So when you're handling samples, you're processing samples, you must wear your hand glove. On no occasion should you use your hand to carry samples, whether you are just examining the samples or whether you are processing the sample. It's expedient that you do the needful by wearing your hand gloves. So if there are any cuts or abrasions on the hand, it is very important that the gloves be worn in this case, as staff members have a greater risk of contracting infections. Please note that gloves should be worn when topping, separating samples, or whether. So whether you're topping sample, you are separating sample, gloves must be worn. Gloves must be changed frequently and inspected visually for discoloration, holes, and tears. So immediately you discover that there are holes, there are tears, ensure that that glove is changed, or there is a stain. Ensure that that glove is changed appropriately. Please, gloves must be removed when leaving the lab and discarded in medical waste. Very, very important. Gloves must be removed when leaving the lab and discarded in medical waste. So let's talk about other PPE like goggles and safety sheets. So goggles, safety glasses are not necessary for general use, but must be available when specific tasks require you to wear goggles or safety sheet. Example of those tasks could be handling of corrosive and caustic materials, handling explosive materials, handling and UV light source. When you're working with UV light source, you should wear goggles or safety sheet. Very important. Handling of explosive material, handling of genetic material, any process that can produce aerosols or infectious agent. Example, on fetal centrifuge, you must use goggles and safety sheet. Any other task not specified above with the potential of eye injury or contamination, you should be able to use what? Your goggles or safety sheet. Toppling specimen is required that you can use safety sheet, because sometimes why do you use safety sheet? Because of splash, spillage, and the rest. Cutting sections at the microtome. So when you are cutting, taking sections for histology, it's expected that you wear a safety sheet or goggle, because any of these things could lead to safety issues. So please note, an eye wash bottle must be placed in all areas where corrosive and caustic materials are handled. This is very important. For where you have corrosive and caustic materials, you must have an eye wash station or an eye wash bottle that is stationed there. Now let's talk about eye wash bottles. For eye wash bottles are used in situations where something, example, samples of body fluid, reagent, chemicals has splashed into someone's eye. That is when we use, one of the reasons we use eye wash bottles. So eye wash bottles must be located within 10 seconds or 30 meters from the area where staff handling corrosive or irritating materials. Your eye wash bottles or your eye wash station must not be too far from where you are working with corrosive or irritant materials. The location of the eye wash well light and eye wash bottles, what we call. You have this, it saves you a lot from splash on the eyes. The eye is very important. We don't want you to be deformed. You don't want to be deformed. You don't want to get blind. So keep the eye open with your fingers when you are washing. Remember, you have taken the eye wash station. If it's an eye wash station that you have, so definitely there should be a sink under. If you don't have an eye wash station, if it's eye wash bottle you have, take the eye wash bottle to where you have the sink. Now place the eye piece of the bottle over the eye and squeeze the bottle. The water will flow into the eye and excess water will come out of the waste pipe. Flush the eyes for at least 15 minutes. Check the water daily for fungal growth or turbidity and change water weekly with fresh tap water or distilled water. This is for the eye wash bottle. So that you don't get an eye wash bottle that is contaminated with either some fungal growth or the others.
Recording in progress.
So look at it again. This for the eye wash station. This is just what I've explained. I said that the location of the eye wash bottle should be well lit and highly visible. So flushing the eye, if possible, carry out the procedures over a sink or a wash basin. Then keep the eye open with your fingers. Place the eye piece of the bottle over the eye and squeeze the bottle. The water will flow into the eye and excess water will come out of the waste pipe. Flush the eye for at least 15 minutes. Check the water daily for fungal growth or turbidity or change and change the water weekly or fresh tap water or distilled water as the case may be. So this is to encourage the safety of the water which you are using for the eye wash station or for your eye wash bottles. So for shoes, after staff handling heavy equipment or heavy boxes should be wearing safety boots or shoe to protect the feet from injury. That's the major reason why we say when you walk in the last place, your shoe must not be open, it has to be covered. So all staff handling heavy equipment, heavy boxes should be wearing safety boots or shoes to protect the feet from injuries. The definition of handling refers to the removing or transfer of these items over a short distance. So all staff in the laboratory should not wear an open-ended shoe, slippers while working in the laboratory. This is very, very important. It's a non-conformance if you find working in the lab with an open-ended shoe or slippers. Now, let's look at laminar flow or BioSafety cabinet. These are some of the laboratory safety equipment that we are looking at. Now, biological safety cabinet is to be used whenever when the infectious materials are handled. Remember that we said the minimum medical laboratory or workstation should have minimum biosafety level 2. You can check our previous classes on different classification of biosafety. Lab and the rest. So infectious materials are handled, such materials may be centrifuge in the open laboratory seed. Centrifuge safety cups are used if they are loaded and unloaded in biological safety cabinet. When there are increased risks of airborne infection, you use what? The biological safety cabinet. Procedure with high potential for producing aerosols are used. You have to use what? BioSafety cabinet. This may include centrifuging, grinding, blending, vigorous shaking, and mixing, disruption, opening of contaminated or infectious material, or the international inoculation of animals and harvesting of infectious tissues from animals or egg. So you should use a biological safety cabinet or a laminar flow to be able to do such procedures. Disinfect the work surface, interior side, and back and inside of the window using 70% alcohol or 0.5 chloride or hypochlorite before and after working in the biosafety cabinet. This is very, very important. So you must disinfect it, and you can use your UV light to also disinfect the biosafety cabinet. Do not store equipment or supplies in the cabinet when it is not in use. Very, very important. Do not use top of the cabinet to store materials. This could damage the HEPA filter and disrupt the airflow. So you can see some people, you just put things on top of the biosafety cabinet because they want to maximize space or use it as a cupboard. No, you don't do that. But safety cabinet must be properly and regularly maintained according to the manufacturer's instructions. So there must be periodic maintenance for the biosafety cabinet. And it's worthy to note that the biosafety cabinet must be calibrated. It has to be calibrated at least minimum once a year, or anytime it is being moved, or anytime you feel that it's not giving the desired output. So you have to calibrate it, and there must be a certification for that calibration, showing that that biosafety cabinet has been calibrated and has passed calibration. When the biosafety cabinet is no longer passing calibration, it is expected that you no longer use that biosafety cabinet. It is no longer a biosafety cabinet or just a cupboard. Equipment such as autoclave and biological safety cabinet must be validated with appropriate method before being taken into use. The certification should be taking place at regular intervals, just as I said earlier, according to the manufacturer instruction or according to your safety manual for your organization. So this is an example of a class 2 biosafety cabinet. It could be any product, but the most important thing that you should be able to do what it's designed to do, and the cabinet must be certified that it is able to meet the user's intention. Look at fume hoods and extraction system. So fume hoods or other extraction systems are used to prevent exposure to toxic, irritating, or noxious chemicals. Example, when we talk about histology specimen must be selected in fume hoods or other extraction systems. So this will help to protect the laboratorian or the pathology, the physician, or whoever that is working with the histology specimen. Do not store equipment and other supplies on the cabinet that are not being used during the procedure. The fume hood must remain on at all times while it is in use and for a sufficient time afterward to clear the hood or airborne hazardous substances. So fume hoods are used for extraction systems, different extraction systems you could use to help you to take those air and those fugitive, those hazardous chemicals out of the workspace. So let's talk about disinfectants. So the proper selection and the use of disinfectant is important for safety. So you must use disinfectant. So disinfectant have a various characteristics that must be considered before one is selected for a particular one you are using in your lab or your workstation. Now we have alcohol from 70 to 85%, chlorine compound, we have formaldehyde, we have glutathione, we have phenolic compound, we have quaternary ammonium compounds that compose different compositions, hypochlorite, stuff like that. So whatever you're using, you should be able to address your safety need. And most important thing, your disinfectant must, the kind of disinfectant you use in your bench or your workstation must be captured in your safety manual. So, or your quality manual that shows that, oh, this is what you use to disinfect X, Y, Z, or this is what you use to disinfect your station. Please, and remember that it must be prepared accordingly, must be used accordingly, and it must have a documented procedure for the use of your disinfectant, both preparation and how to use it, the frequency of use, and the choice of use. So we'll move to module 9 that talks about first aid. So when we talk about first aid, what is first aid? First aid facility must be available near the laboratory. You must have a first aid facility. It's part of the requirement. First aid is only a means of providing a temporary medical assistance until proper medical help can be obtained. Please remember, first aid is not treatment. First aid is not a hospital. First aid is not a clinic. So ensure that you have a first aid, that you don't misplace the priority of a first aid. What are the steps of first aid? The most important step of first aid in order are the following: the airways, the breathing, and the circulation. So steps of first aid: you clear the airway, restore breathing, and heartbeat. So these are the priorities Then stop the bleeding, prevent shock, treat wounds, and etc. So before you could also seek for medical attention. So these are this. So the quality ABC, the airways, the breathing and circulation. So if there are issues with an individual, the first action should be targeted toward the airways. Next should be targeting the breathing and circulation, like clear the airways, restore breathing and heartbeat, and stop the bleeding, prevent shock, treat wounds, and etc. So, what are the common injuries in the lab? I want to talk about common injury in the lab. From explosion to chemical burns, particularly from shattered glass or equipment, thermal or chemical burns to skin cuts, puncture wound from glass or metal with possible chemical biohazard contamination, poisoning to the skin or injection or inhaling, chemical electric and civilization. So these are some common injuries one who is working in the lab would experience. What are the content of first aid box? Very important. So you must know what the first aid box content should have. It should have a wound cleaner, antiseptic. It should have swab for cleaning wound, cutting wound for padding, sterile guys, one pair of forceps, one pair of scissors, a set of safety pin, 4 triangle bandage, 4 roller bandage, one roll of elastic adhesive plaster, one non-allergic adhesive strip, one packet of adhesive dressing strip, 4 first aid dressing, four first aid dressing, different specification, 2 straight splints, 2 pairs large or 2 pairs medium of disposable latex glove, one CPRO mouthpiece or similar devices. Now, these are specification and some of the minimum requirements. However, you should have a documented procedure that shows the content of your first aid box, and those content must be regularly present. If 1 or 2 items are not there, it's expected that those items should be replaced, or if it is finished, should be replaced for effectiveness. So look at them